Hello gamers, today I'm taking a look at not only a game from my childhood, but a game that was released on every console possible, that being Need for Speed's Most Wanted, made by the legendary developers Black Box, a studio that was on fire in the mid to late 2000s, behind hit games like the Need for Speed series and the Skate series. But as mentioned before, today we are looking at Most Wanted, a game that was a part of Need for Speed's yearly releases, but managed to stand out more than any other game released in the series, at least to me and a lot of other people. And today we are going to take a look at some of the reasons that led to the game being talked about 20 years after its release, when the other games have faded into the ether of yearly releases. But before we get into that, I quickly just want to mention this commentary slash audio may come across a bit more cutty or jumpy than my other ones. It's just at the moment well, not at the moment, but a couple weeks ago I was very ill, and ever since then I have been coughing for like weeks on end. And at this point, it just won't go away. So that's fun, I'll have to work around that. But I really wanted to talk about this game, so let's get right into it. And we're going to start off with something that, in all fairness, probably has very little to do with the game's success. But I don't know when else I'll be able to talk about it. And that is the BMW M3 GTR. The game's poster car, a car that is coated in motorsports history, even though it was banned after only one season. So let's talk about it. The story starts in the ALMS, or American Le Mans series, and much like a lot of endurance racing, Porsche had been dominating the series, and well, some madmen at BMW wanted to change that. So they got to work developing the M3 GTR, ditching their production 3.2 litre inline 6 engine for a beastly 4 litre naturally aspirated V8. But like a lot of series, the ALMS had something called homologation rules, which basically states that the car has to be based off a production model. So BMW did something that I love when motorsports teams do. They read the rules and follow them to the T, exploiting any loopholes in the way the rules are written. In order to be in line with the homologation rules, BMW produced 10 models of the BMW M3 GTR Slassenwagen. I'm almost most definitely pronouncing that incorrectly, which sported the same V8, just detuned to be road legal. The Straßenversion, which stands for street version, which I will now refer to so I stop butchering the German language, was just that, solely designed so that the BMW M3 GTR would pass the rules of the time, as the rules stated that at least 10 quote-unquote production cars had to be made, which even to this day it's not believed that BMW made all 10 cars, making 6 of them, only around 3 of which still exist today. And due to the poorly written rules in the American Le Mans series, BMW didn't even need to sell these cars, as no M3 V8 street version left BMW's ownership. And our creative understandings of the rules allowed them to make the most winning car of the 2001 ALMS season, winning 8 out of the 10 races, which is a statistic that would almost make Max Verstappen proud, with the car being extremely suited to running full out for the length of any endurance race it took part in, making it almost undefeatable in endurance racing. Now of course, when one team wins like this, it tends to upset the other teams, so the car was protested and later banned for the next season onwards, with rule changes coming around solely to remove the M3 GTR, these changes being the jumping from 10 road cars to 100, and these cars had to be available to the public and quote unquote at a reasonable price, which I think when the racing series changes their rules to stop your team, that's when you truly made it as a engineer, much like when the FIA banned the double diffuser to stop Brawn GP, which, thanks to the double diffuser, Brawn GP is the most winning team in F1 by percentage of wins, sort of a same statistic that the BMW M3 GTR holds. But that's enough talk about motorsports for now. As I said at the start of this here ramble, the BMW M3 GTR is indeed a part of why the game has so much staying power, but not the main reason or the only reason. So let's move on to what I believe is the main reason Most Wanted stands out from its fellow seriesmen. That being the return of police, which hasn't been a part of the Need for Speed series since 2002. And boy oh boy did they return with a bang in the game, having some of the best police AI I have ever seen, but at the same time also having some of the worst. Kind of like a GTA, Most Wanted has a 5-level system referred to as heat, which works a little bit different than you may be used to, as all of the cars you own have different heat levels, where some cars may have the max of 5 heat, when others have 1 or even none. And if you don't use a car with a certain heat level, or if you change the cosmetic look of a car, its heat level will also slowly decrease, as if the cops don't see a car, they tend to forget about it. It also probably helps that all the cars, all the street racing cars, including that of your opponents, have the exact same number plate, so that doesn't help. Now, the main good thing about the police is when you are at or above the free heat level, the game has some of the best, most realistic, with an asterisk, police I have ever seen in a game, even in today's gaming landscape, where the police will attempt to do a rolling block where they won't just follow behind you, but get in front of you and slow down to then slow you down. And the game also has thousands of police voice lines to make it feel even more realistic, as it also allows you to know if there are roadblocks or spike strips ahead of you. And the roadblocks are not always the easiest to get around, as they will double up cars so that you can't just smash right through them for the most part. So listening to those comms allows you to sort of avoid some more difficult objects that the police can throw at you. The only downside I had on the higher levels is just that they are very hard. Like, I would generally struggle to survive a 5 heat level, requiring the use of pursuit breakers to get away. Pursuit breakers being dynamic parts of the map that can be knocked over or destroyed to stop police cars, giving you valuable seconds to get away. And sometimes some police will stay back with destroyed police cars after a pursuit breaker, limiting the police on your tail for a short amount of time. But now it's time to talk about the bad part of the police and the heat system. I just talked about how awesome and challenging it is on heat level 3 and above. However, the same cannot be said for heat levels 1 and 2. The hardest part about the lower heat levels is keeping the police's line of sight on you, as half the time you will take one turn at medium speed and lose the car following you instantly. And then as soon as you enter the cooldown mode, which is just a time that you need to stay out of the police's view to end a chase, the cop will then speed off in the completely opposite direction that he was just following you to, which ended up with multiple occasions during my playthrough where I was chasing after the cops that were running away from me in order to get to the higher heat level to complete bounties or milestones, which I'll get to soon. The only plus to being so easy to lose the cops at the lower levels is that it's very easy to start another pursuit, which leads me on to another aspect of the game that I dislike, which I know I said this video is me trying to figure out what makes this game stand out more than other yearly installments of Need for Speed, but it's also important to talk about the game's less than perfect elements. And the last one I want to go in depth in is the game's teleportation feature. as you can teleport to any race or a spot to start a pursuit right away. And it's just so much better to teleport to the right races of the blacklister you are trying to take down. Why wouldn't you? It also probably didn't help that I didn't have the ability to set waypoints, as I just never bound that on my controller. But still, I think a game about driving cars should take away or not make it easier to not drive to locations. And even if I could set waypoints to the races, it wouldn't remove me teleporting to pursuit chases, as the alternative is driving around the map mindlessly until coming across a cop, which they are randomly spawning. And I think in free roam I came across maybe 2. And then once again, if you're in a car with a low heat level, that cop's probably going to disappear out of your sight instantly anyways. And it's so unfortunate that teleporting is so easy, as they had made a pretty good map for the game. The city of Rockport for the most part feels like a real city, with 3 or 4 different zones that feel unique but also feel part of the overall city of Rockport. And for a 2005 game, it doesn't look awful. That is, if you ignore the game's, let's say, infamous golden filter. Not only did the city of Rockport look good, but it had some pretty nice looking cars driving around. As what would a Need for Speed game be without a good selection of cars? But the thing I like about the selection of cars, that it's not a massive list of cars. Now, it's probably mainly cut down to avoid on forking out thousands, if not tens of thousands in licensing fees, but it also makes sense that a street racing game isn't going to have the largest spread of cars. It's not realistic that you'd be racing around against 3 Koenigsegg Agera Rs now, is it? With the game mostly pulling from a bunch of tuner cars that you would see in any street racing culture, with some lesser valued sports cars like Porsches or some older Lambos that rich kid racers would probably get with their daddy's money, and of course the hero car, the BMW M3 GTR. Which who knows how the main character got that car? The only downside about the cars in the game is the fact that the customization of the cars is a step down from previous Need for Speed, mainly the Underground games, which literally came just before this one. Only being able to select body kits for your car's overall look, instead of going into detail with what front rear bumpers you want and what side skirts and all that you want on the car. But to be honest, I don't really mind this, as I'd only change the car's looks when I needed to lower the heat on my race cars. Now, we know the cars look good, but how do they handle? What is the physics like in the game? All the cars do handle differently from each other, which is a good start. At least they handle differently from each other at high speed. However, at low speed, they all have this super slippy, hard to control model, which just feels awful to drive, and I have no idea why they are like this, and all the cars do it. They also control the same when you use the game's slow-mo mode, but the car would become completely uncontrollable if you were trying to use slow-mo to get around an object or maybe control a spin that you'd overdone. You would just end up spinning in the opposite direction uncontrollably. The slow-mo was so pointless that like 1/3 of the way into the game, I rebound the button for the slow-mo for drag races, and I completely forgot about it until just right now. But as mentioned, when traveling at speed, the controlling is pretty spot on, with some cars being very slippy at the rear at high speeds and others controlling like a dream, which I would expect from those cars. The only other thing that's kind of annoying is the rubber banding the AI racers have, as they can crash out and get stuck and end up like a lap or half a lap behind you and make it back before the end of the next lap, which is slightly annoying when the AI can catch up that drastically with rubber banding, but the player does not have that same ability to help us. But at the end of the day, the races weren't overly difficult anyways, so I wasn't struggling to win, but that's not the point. It's annoying. It's like, I see you stuck there for 5 minutes, then a minute later you're behind me. But hey, it's now finally time to talk about the game's story. Is it good? Does it pass the Bechdel test? Well, counting it's a video game about street racing in 2005, probably not. Is it awful? Well, there's only one way to find out, and that's to dive or drive right into it. The game opens with you, the playable character who is unnamed, racing into Rockport in his BMW M3 GTR to take on the Blacklist, a list of the world's most wanted criminals. Wait, no, that's the wrong blacklist. A list of the top 15 street racers in Rockport. While speeding into Rockport, he comes alongside a tricked out RX-8. Pulling alongside the car, it will be driven by a woman named Mia. Popular female racer / female street racer adjacent name, it would seem. But right as they get to talking, a police car shows up as Mia speeds off away from the cops. They are left to confront our playable character. Those police being Sergeant Cross, who will be one of the game's 2 antagonists, and also Sergeant Cross's unnamed sidekick lady, who I'm pretty sure just straight up does not have a name, and it's not that I can't remember it, but maybe she's so inconsequential I just can't remember it anyways. But luckily enough for us, Cross is called off somewhere else before he has a chance to inspect the M3, which is most definitely probably not the most road legal vehicle out there. After that, we make our way to the location of number 15 on the blacklist to challenge him and take his spot. That person being one Razor, or Clarence. As Mia sets up the race for us and takes the pink slips for each of our cars, the race is underway as the police attach on as we chase Razor around town. That is until we receive a phone call from Mia, claiming that there was a pool of oil left on the floor where we took off from, thinking that maybe one of Razor's boys had cut something under our car. The car then coming to a standstill, which not only loses our beauty of an M3 but also gets us thrown in jail for an unknown amount of time, but most likely anywhere between 1 to 4 months. But after we get released, Mia is there to pick us up and tell us that a lot has changed during our time behind bars. The main thing being that Razor has taken the M3 and used it to climb to the top of the blacklist, making it our goal to take him down and regain the car. And Mia helps you out by giving you some money to buy a new ride, and also sets you up with a safe house in Rosewood, the suburban part of Rockport. After picking up a new whip, it's finally time to start making your way up the blacklist. And whilst making your way up the list, you will receive texts from people, which is where you get most of the game's story between races from, with texts from Mia as she starts some kind of underground betting ring on your races, and then texts from someone named Rog, who is another racer who is also helping you make your way up the blacklist, as it's most likely believed in the fandom that Rog was the blacklister at number 15 before Razor took him out, giving him lots of reasons to help us defeat Mr. Razor. And then Cross will get your phone number and basically insult you and let you know that he's going to catch you. And then of course Razor also gets your number and basically shit talks you a lot. Outside of the text, there are some scenes with Mia where she somehow gets you access to the police database with Cross's login of all people, which I'm sure she got from like hacking him and no other reasons. But outside of that, how do you make your way up the blacklist? Well, the only way to move up the blacklist is to defeat the number above you. However, you can't just challenge them, as you need to prove yourself as worthy. And well, how do you prove yourself as worthy? Do you lift up a hammer? Not quite. It's a bit more work than that. The first and most obvious way is by winning races. There are a bunch of different types of races to do, those being circuit races, which is just a lapped track, normally being 2 or 3 laps. Then there are also different variants of the circuit race called knockout race, where the last racer after every lap is removed from the race. Then there are sprint races, which is a non-lapped race, and there are a couple different versions of this one. The first being speed traps, which is where your finishing position isn't dictated by the winner of the race, but the person who had the overall top speed taken from traps around the track. The final version of a sprint race is that of the toll booth race, which is basically just a time trial where you are not racing against other drivers, but a timer needing to get to toll booths around Rockport's highway systems within a certain amount of time. Normally these times being maybe just a little bit too generous, but then there is my most hated type of race, that being drag races, where unlike normal drag races, where street racers try to block off and get themselves a nice straight road, they don't take place in a blocked off straight road, having you race down bendy streets, dodging traffic. And the game also changes your controls for these races, removing the ability to steer. Instead, you just select what lane you are in theory giving you more time to focus on hitting perfect shifts, which is also a feature only in drag races, giving you a perfect good or overshift, with a chance to blow your engine up if you overshift too many times. But by far the worst part about this is, even though you are meant to switch lanes, sometimes the game will have you randomly sit between 2 lanes, even though you tell the game to move over. And if you have a head-on crash in a drag race, there's a chance your car gets totaled, failing the race instantly, which is hard to come to terms with when you then leave the drag race and get into a head-on crash with a heavy-duty police SUV designed to wreck your life and resume driving afterwards just fine. But hey, what do I know? I know that races is not the only thing required to challenge a blacklister. As street racing isn't the most legal of cultures, they have pride in breaking the law. So, in order to challenge a blacklister, you need a certain bounty with the police, which bounties can be gained by going on police pursuits. But there is also one other way, and which is also the final requirement to race a blacklister. Those being something called milestones, which are basically goals for you to complete mainly during a pursuit. If that's time lasted, if you lose the police in 2 minutes or last 10 minutes during a chase, then there are other goals like cost to the state, which is basically damaging public property. Then there's wrecked police cars, which is pretty easy to explain, it's destroying cop cars. And another easy one to understand is roadblocks passed. There are 2 types of roadblocks, those being the normal ones and a row of police cars, and road spikes, which is normally a police car in one lane and spikes in the other. Spikes which, by the way, will destroy your car with the touch of just one tyre. And the final milestone that you can do, and is the only one that can be done outside of a pursuit, which are speed traps, giving you a speed that they want you to reach. But now that you know all the ways to make your way up the blacklist, it's time to get to it. And after reaching all required targets, you can then challenge the next blacklister, which then puts you in a 1v1 against them on their preferred race type, if that's a circuit, sprint or drag race. Unfortunately, there isn't too much story behind the blacklisters. There is a brief bio that you can learn what car they drive and what part of town that they are in, if that's the aforementioned Rosewood, Camden Beach, a coastal industrial part of town, or of course downtown Rockport itself. Mia getting you safe houses in each part of town as you move up the list. Oh, and also after defeating a blacklister, you get 2 markers that you can use on them, where they are either guaranteed car upgrades that you can pick or a random choice, which can get you things like get your car out of the impound lot or money, or the best option, the pink slip of the car of the blacklister you just took out. But as I mentioned, none of them really have backstory apart from the top 3. 3 and 2 being Razor's boys, who are basically there to stop the rest of the list going after Razor. Then of course finally Razor himself, and after removing his goons you can finally take down Razor, having to beat him in more than 5 races, more than any other on the blacklist. Doing so, we meet back up with him to finally see the return of our baby to its rightful owner. But as we do, Mia takes down Razor and hands us our keys. However, when Razor's boys step up to help him,
it's over, Razor.
It ain't over until I say it's over.
Mia flashes her gun and a badge. As it turns out, she had been an undercover cop the whole time, which looking back at it makes 100% sense. Like, Cross lets her go when we first meet. She just so happens to know when we are being released from jail. Like, I guess we could have told her, but I doubt it. And she gives us access to the police database. And magically, we never see any of the previous lower blacklisters mentioned after beating them. And I'm sure all of this would have been very shocking, but I mean, I saw Fast and Furious. I know every street racing media needs an undercover cop. Then there's some chick named Mia, like, I'm not stupid. Or maybe I am. I know Mia in Fast and Furious wasn't a cop, but she dated a cop, so you know, close enough. But after Mia throws us our keys, she lets us get a head start as Cross then sends the full power of Rockport PD down on us. After surviving around 5 minutes of 5 level heat, Mia calls us to tell us not to hang up and gives us an escape plan. Luckily, the M3 GTR is fast enough to jump a destroyed bridge and get out of the city. And Cross's souped up police Corvette is somehow not powerful enough to make the jump. I'm not going to question it. So she sends you a GPS ping and you race over there, jumping out of Rockport and right into the next Need for Speed game. However, this video is not about that game. So, is the story the reason the game is remembered so fondly? No. As I mentioned, I feel the lack of story between the blacklisters is a bit of a letdown. But at the same time, I guess the list is just a means of getting to Razor. And yes, the story can be pretty cheesy at times, but that's a part of the appeal of early 2000s racing media. But I feel it's more the combination of all these good features which make an amazing game, or at least stand out from its fellow series games. I also could be completely off by saying this, but I think it may have been the first racing game with a narrative. I'm not going to fact check that as it's late and I want to go to bed. To be honest, the previous Need for Speed games probably have some kind of story, but Need for Speed Most Wanted was clearly the best, as we are still talking about it today, but I think I have been yapping for long enough. Now, if you have enjoyed the video, do that YouTube stuff, leave a like, subscribe, and always remember, live life a quarter mile at a time. And family.
Hi, I'm Josie Marin and I play Mia in Need for Speed Most Wanted. Make sure you do all your racing in the game. On the streets, drive safely and responsibly, and wear your seatbelt.